What it mean to be the best? Riding foes, feeling unimpressed. Make me reminisce, throwing bows, bend the corner, set my mind up on a goal. All I know is stay down, bad, I'm the goal. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. I ain't gotta say much. Know the boy got a touch. Another win for the rush. Another win for the rush. See me once and got a crush. See you twice and that's enough. Get the ring sized up.
What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Tell the Truth, episode 40, baby. Yes, sir. Y'all like the new intro? Yes, sir. Shout out to our guy, our brother, Airhead AMP, Mr. Ross himself put that together for us. We appreciate it, big dog. But yes, we had to make sure we cleaned it up, man. It's a new year. Football is a week away. The Chiefs have a new 53-man roster. The Chiefs have some new players in town, have some players leaving town as well, and we'll get to both and the people that actually made it on. But first and foremost, I'm D-Mac. DG is here. CJ is here. How y'all doing, man?
Hey, man, what Drake say? It's a new season, and we still breathing. You know?
And nah, man. Really big team,
and they need some they need really big rings. We going for that third one, man.
You know,
just glad the season. We back, man. What we 9 days away?
9 days away, yes, sir.
9 days away from kickoff. So
the day before the week. You feel?
Right.
the day before the week, man. Yeah. Hey, man, I'm ready. Yeah, we got Labor Day next week. Hey, we got a full weekend of college football.
I'm off work on Friday, so I just
and Thursday. Oh man,
weekend, bro.
He said Thursday start your weekend.
I was just telling wifey the other day. I was like, "Look, it's gonna be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday." So 5 days of football, man. From NFL to college, man. It's about to be crazy.
It is. It absolutely is. But looking forward to it. But yes, sir. Once again, shout out to Ross, man. Yes, sir. Appreciate
Ross
you.
Like, let's go.
Yes, sir. Everybody in the building appreciate y'all. But yes, we do have a 53-man roster kind of go over. But I did want to start out talking about the new players in Chiefs Kingdom. And we'll start with the more minor one, Mr. Peyton Hendershot of the Dallas Cowboys, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys. He came over in a trade for a conditional 2026 seventh rounder. Conditions, I think he's either on the 53-man roster for 5 games or on the active game day roster for 3 games. And so if so, then they get a 2026 seventh round pick because the Cowboys enjoy 7th round picks, I suppose. And we get a guy that will be the 4th tight end on the roster. Does have a lot of work as far as special teams is concerned, and does have some receiving chops and a little bit maybe of inline blocking tight end. And we'll talk, more about the comparison between him and Nerf Smith Jr. as we dive into the 53-man roster. But that is the minor move that was made earlier today. Now, the move that was late at night last night that I think took everybody kind of by surprise was Mr. Cameron Thomas from San Diego State, 3rd round pick, formerly of the Arizona Cardinals, getting traded here for a 7th round pick. I believe in this year's draft was the deal. It's a move that I think a lot of people saw coming from the edge depth perspective because a guy like Truman Jones kind of got hurt. But ultimately speaking, that was Brett Veach, sending his "What's up, you up" text to the Arizona Cardinals GM and getting the deal done before the 53-man roster cutdown day happened. So, yes, sir. So, what were you guys' initial reactions? We'll talk about both deals, that you guys had a reaction to.
The Hendershot trade kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop because I thought we would be going into the season with 3 tight ends initially, but it seemed like Brett Veach and them had a little bit other plans. I don't know too much about him. I just know he was a backup pretty much to Big Ferg down there, Jake Ferguson. But seems to be serviceable if he was able to stick around in Dallas for a little bit. So I don't have too many expectations from him. Just come in, do your job, do the dirty work. Pretty much is what it sounds like what they kind of bringing him in for. Hopefully he has a little bit of skill set to be a receiver out there at certain points or whatever, but kind of just probably had the same role as Noah Gray, just doing things that they don't want Travis Kelce doing at this point. So, that's all. Only thing I had. Then the Cameron Thomas trade, yeah, really caught me by surprise, especially with how late it was at night last night. But definitely a point of emphasis of where we needed some depth at a position. We really need depth at the edge. High motor kind of guy. I really just think that the Cardinals didn't know how to use him in a sense. So now him being here with a coach like Joe Cullen, I would hope that Joe Cullen can bring out the best in him. And we can really see what he's really truly capable of, in our defense as well. But, definitely glad to have an extra depth piece there at the edge position. And he's still relatively young. So I think it's a good move by Brevich.
Yeah, CJ, what about you as far as Peyton Hendershot and Cameron Thomas are concerned?
Dallas had a good set of tight ends for a while, actually. Because I remember a lot of people forget Dalton Schultz was very productive in Dallas before he went to Houston. And obviously Jake Ferguson took over. And I believe it was one of their Thanksgiving games a couple of years ago. I think all three of their tight ends had, I think, either scored a touchdown or they all had a 20-yard play. And I believe Hendershot was one of them. It was him, Ferg, and Dalton a couple of years ago before Dalton moved to Houston. So they actually have been known to having multiple athletic tight ends. And this is another guy who fits the mold. I believe he's 6'5". He can run. He's tall. Obviously, he plays out of special teams, so Toe loves the athletic ability of that too. And anytime you get another tight end who fits the body type, and obviously Irv is more of an H-back. He's a little smaller, a little stockier guy, but it's like the prototypical tight end that Andy Reid likes in his offense. Hendershot fits that to a T. He can run. He's tall. He's lean. He can catch the ball and make plays with the ball in his hands. Obviously, we can see if he's a great inline blocker. I don't think they're going to ask him to do any major blocking. If anything, if he did get in, it would be like if like an injury happened to Noah Wiley, God forbid anything to Travis, but if anything happened, they could call him up and add him to be tight end 3, like DG said. So it's a good move. I watched some of their clips when they lose it out of their 12 and 13 sets a couple years ago, and Dallas used them in the same ways we use our tight ends. Kind of put them in that bunch set, have them either run a seam, get open, or kind of use a double team block to get somebody on the edge. So I like the move from that standpoint. And he plays special teams, which is even better because you don't see too many tight ends with athletic ability who can play on special teams. So that's good for us. And the Cam Thomas move, which is his name is hilarious because everybody thought it was Brooklyn Nets Cam Thomas, which is funny. But no, he's another guy that fits. Like you could tell they have a profile of guys that they like. He fits the mold, very long arms, which some of the Spags likes. Obviously Joe Cullen as well. A guy that has a decent bend, nothing crazy, has a decent get off, nothing really crazy special about his athletic ability. But the size and dimensions are there. And to DG's point, if anybody can get something out of him, it is Spags and it is Joe Cullen. So I love that move for the defense. And anytime you get in that add extra depth for your edge rush, I love that, especially with Charles Omenihu, who we pretty much expect to be out till November. First half of the season is similar to last year. More bodies, the better. You can never have enough edge rushers and DBs, and we've said that for years. So the more talent, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, as a Nets fan, this is going to be very confusing for me. The fact that Cam Thomas is now on both the Nets and the Chiefs, that's going to be fun to deal with as well.
Spider-Man.
Can't wait. But yeah, we did, fortunately with the new NFL Pro, this was pretty easy to make. But I did go through kind of last night and put together a little bit of a cut up as far as his, 3 sacks that he had. This is his rookie year in 2022. And really the thing that stands out is the length, the power that he played with at San Diego State, the ability to get through offensive tackle's chest because of those 2 specific qualities that he possesses. And that's exactly what Spags wants out of an edge. And again, he showed the ability really to stack and shed blocks at the line of scrimmage and make an impact on the run game and be strong and stout on the edge and set an edge. And that's, again, something that Spags and Cullen certainly value. So for a guy that was a bona fide day 2 selection, Dane Brugler had him as a 3rd-round graded prospect. He was taken in the 3rd round by the Cardinals. I think he certainly is somebody that both Cullen and Spags can get more out of than the Cardinals, who at times had him standing up, at times, had him dropping in coverage, which we know Spags isn't afraid to do, but still more than I would feel comfortable with. But having him really as a true even front edge, I think is going to be really important. And as you see here, as he sacks Brock Purdy, he can reduce down and go up against some interior offensive linemen. to create some mismatches. So I'm excited to bring him in. I think we needed the edge depth. You needed to give Dana and Karlaftis a breather throughout the first part of the season while Aminihu was coming back. You need to allow Aminihu to, ramp up slowly as he comes back from that ACL. And you need to allow Felix to have his developmental pathway as such a young player to continue to go along the pace in which his skill set, necessitates it, rather than forcing him into a bigger role. So that's what Cam Thomas can give to you as far as this is concerned, and I think it's a good deal. Hendershot, you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's what you want to tight in. With as much as we use heavy personnel sets, it makes sense to have a guy that you rely upon there. He has the ability on special teams, whether it's now the new kickoff rules, being the guy that either tackles or blocks as far as either part of that line, and he can have some punt value as well. So no issues with either of those two trades. Obviously didn't see them coming, but that's the beauty of being a team run by Brett Veach. He can pull out some trades to surprise you, ultimately speaking, right before the trade or right before the cut down has to end up happening. And speaking of which, as it pertains to the 53-man roster, which we somehow had to wait 2 hours for, which God bless the Chiefs. I don't know how they get away with it, to be honest with you. It's just incredible that they continue to do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
They love waiting till the last minute.
They love it. They absolutely love it. But it's the worst. But shout out to Mr. Peat when he does an amazing job over there. Airhead Pride, always covering the Chiefs as well. Great dude, a person that can rap in the entirety of Dreams and Nightmares, and I will never fail to mention that because it was one of the funniest things I've ever come across in my life. Shout out to Peat Sweeney. But he has the 53-man roster as it currently stands. Quarterbacks, obviously, Mahomes and Carson Wentz. What's up? Running backs, Jose Pacheco on CEH. Fullbacks, Carson Steele. So obviously he will be used as a running back as well. Wide receivers, which we'll get into. Hollywood, Rasheed Worthy, no surprises there. Watson, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman, and Juju. It did seem like that was just going to end up being the group because of some of the depth guys that weren't able to push their way onto it. Peyton joining the top three as far as Kelsey, Gray, and Wiley. Offensive line was as expected, except we will have to give a shout out to CJ Hansen that did make it on there, and Ethan Driscoll, who was a UDFA that essentially took the tackle spot away from Lucas Niang, which some really impressive play throughout the entirety of the preseason. Really showed off his athleticism, and DG is very happy about that reality.
God is great.
Sorry. No disrespect to Lucas, but bruh.
No disrespect to Lucas, but God is great.
Oof, Lord. Oof. Never mind. I'm sorry.
It did not look great at the end. It did not look great at the end. And flipping over to the defense side of the ball, Jones, Turk Warden, Derek Nottie, Mike Pinnell, rounding out the defensive tackle room. George Karlaftis, Dana Herring, Felix, and Cam Thomas. Herring making it on there was maybe a little bit of a surprise, but they like to have their edge depth, and Malik Herring probably was a little bit better than Matt Dickerson, so there you go. Linebackers, only 5. Cochran and Cam Jones joining the starting 3 of Bolden, Tranquil, and Chenal. Both Christensen and Kurtz Jacobs did get waived. We'll see if those guys can make it onto the practice squad. And cornerbacks, the other kind of surprise with Nick Jones making it on there, but also Chris Rowland Wallace, who was also a surprise addition to the 53-man roster. But he had played exceptional throughout the preseason and earned his way onto it. And the safeties are as expected, but Deion Bush did get waived. Now, he is not subject to waivers, so you expect that he will be a guy that will be on the practice squad as years pass and will be elevated accordingly. And, of course, the specialists are, as expected, Bucker, Ariza, and Winchester as well. So that's a 53-man roster. There are a million places that we can go. I will ask you guys for one offensive guy that you really want to highlight as far as the 53-man roster is concerned, and then one defensive guy that you guys want to highlight as far as the 53-man roster is concerned. DG, if you want to go ahead and start us up.
Oh, one offensive guy. I'll go with a backup guy, and that's Ethan Driscoll. Although I was rooting for him to make it, I didn't have much faith that he was, because the Chiefs usually, and in that room they usually go off of who's been there for a while, basically kind of off experience or whatever. So I kind of thought Lucas Niang would be a part of this team, but to see the roster come out and see Ethan Driscoll's name, I was praying I was thanking the heavens because especially what he was able to show on tape in the preseason, just looked a little bit more agile, a little bit more loose out there. Just you can tell, bring something different to this depth of this offensive line than Lucas Niang can at this point. Which Lucas the best in his endeavors, but at this point, yeah, it's time to move on. Defensive guy probably will highlight. I'm not
There ain't too
sure.
many shockers, honestly,
Yeah,
bro.
it's not too many guys
We
that
kind of said this
I'm
yesterday.
surprised by. I didn't pay too much attention to Chris Roland Wallace, so I would like to see, these first couple games of the season what he can bring, especially to special teams and things of that nature. But glad to hear that he made the team, that he was impressive enough to go from a guy that's virtually undrafted to making the 53. That's not an easy thing to do. So proud of him for that or whatever. So hopefully he goes out there and balls out. But no real shocking surprises on the defensive end, in my opinion. I think they did the right thing keeping Malik Herring at this point over a Matt Dickerson or somebody like that. But yeah, not really surprised at all about the defensive side of things.
Okay.
You got
CJ, what about you?
No, yeah, everything's pretty standard. They kind of, like I said yesterday, they kind of made the decision for us. When you bring in a guy like Juju, the receiver room gets locked up. Obviously, we knew Carson Steele's spot was already solidified after the 2 preseason games that we saw from him. And obviously, yesterday we saw like guys like Kelvin Joseph get released, and we knew Najee Johnson spot was safe after that. And then it was just a couple back end guys, and who were they going to choose between Nick Jones, and we were debating him, and Christian Wallace. They ended up keeping both. And we were debating yesterday 5 or 6 corners, ended up keeping both of them. So we said yesterday Deion Bush would be on practice squad, which is more than likely was probably going to happen. Obviously, the edge spot or the D-line spot between Dickerson and Malik Herring was the one we said yesterday. They chose Herring. So we pretty much called the roster yesterday. So it wasn't really too much news. And when you bring in a guy like, obviously, Hendershot and you bring in Cam Thomas late last night and early afternoon today, like I said, they made the roster decisions for us. So us coming into tonight is basically just recapping everything that we said yesterday. So just minor details, but no shocking news, honestly.
No, I thought DJ, did you want to jump in there?
Oh no.
Okay. No, I think you guys certainly hit on those, and those were important, guys. I want to say the only one that I'll highlight on the defensive end, because I mean we've talked about these guys a lot, but it should be said Jaden Hicks did have an excellent preseason. Like, he looks like a stud. He's one of those guys where you find a way to get him on the field. And it feels like there are going to be times in which they find a way to get him on the field, whether it means that Justyn Reed is going to be a little bit more of a pseudo linebacker at times, or it is Jaden Hicks that's going to be more of a pseudo linebacker at times. They're going to find a way to get him on the field. Shamari Connor, obviously, we know, has had a lot of experience in the nickel at this point. There are going to be ways to make sure that Jaden Hicks gets snaps this year. And I think that was only backed up throughout his efforts during the preseason. And, on offense, I'd love to shout out my guy, CJ Hansen, who obviously worked really hard. I think that from the first preseason game to the last preseason game, you saw him improve. And I think that's something that they were certainly looking for. And he has the raw talent. It's just about being able to put in the work. He's a guy that still has a nice ceiling coming out of Holy Cross. And I think that he's taken to what Andy Heck has been teaching him pretty well to this point. And I think he certainly deserves that shout out as well. But yeah, I also wanted to say that we take a look at, as far as the preseason week 3 was concerned, or preseason week 3, and talk about
Crocky,
the preseason darling himself, Mr. Carson Steele. And also, you got to give credit to the interior offensive line, moving some people out of the way, certainly in these clips as well.
Get off.
The fullback is back in KC, man. We haven't had one since Michael Burton left town. But shout out to Andy Reid for coming to his senses and realizing that you need a fullback still in this league.
I'm gonna take Sherman, but like, Sherman, is he better than you? No, I'm playing.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the big gator, man. Carson Steele, man. To go from undrafted to again, like I said, making the 53. This is not an easy league to make a career in, and for you to do that and make it on this roster on a Super Bowl championship roster is a
Shout out Ball
big
State.
deal, man. Yeah, shout out to Ball State. Shout out to UCLA. I know it's been a long time coming for Carson Steele, and to probably get that call that you're making the 53 is, I know he was elated today. So, but yeah, man, he brings. You can just see it right there on tape.
He dribbled 30 off the ground.
Yeah, like
Get off.
he just brings a certain type of nastiness that this offense is definitely going to need. I think him and Pacheco, along with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, will be a good trio back there. I still think the Chiefs might go out and try to find another guy as well too
Samaje P.
to add to this group. Yeah, aka Samaje P. Ryan. But nah, man, just brings a lot to this team. Willing to do the dirty work, willing to block, pass protect. I think that just impressed this coaching staff coming into this season. So yeah, excited for Carson Steele to be on this team, man. It's a really great story at this point. So,
Yeah.
hopefully he
and
can
I
buy
think
that Gator a new cage.
for sure, man. Getting them game checks now. But he deserves it. He is a guy that can play fullback for this team, but he's also a guy that can give you some running back snaps, as we've seen. If you give him the holes, he runs with decisiveness. He's not going to have breakaway speed, but you're talking about being able to get some of that short yardage work, and just in general being able to spell Isaiah Pacheco, being able to be a physical back. That's an important skill set that he possesses and he brings to the table, and he earned his way onto this roster. From the first bit of training camp in which Deneric Prince was ahead of him, and there were guys like Keontae Ingram and Imani Bailey ahead of him. He worked his way up and earned his way onto this roster. You got to give that man a lot of credit for being able to do so as well. There is one familiar face that we did not necessarily mention, but did get re-signed in between, last time we talked, and obviously the 53-man roster, which is Juju Smith-Schuster, the receiving yards leader as far as the wide receiver room is concerned on the 2022 championship Chiefs. Number one offense in the league, Mr. TikTok boy himself, and I say that affectionately. Shout out to Juju coming back, man. Like CJ said, when he did, re-sign, it kind of secured what you thought about the room with it, and it's really about the floor. It's about being able to have somebody to insulate for a Hollywood Brown injury and for, Rashid Rice, things surrounding him, but just in general. And, it's a break class in case of emergency, which is what the down the roster depth guys in the wide receiver room are supposed to do. And that's why he's back ultimately. So let me get your thoughts as far as Juju coming back and re-signing CJ, and then we'll get to DG.
Take care of that knee, son. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you got to sit in the training room every day. I don't want to see no TikTok dancing. I don't want to see no jumping jacks. I don't want to see no nothing. If you ain't running a route, I bet not see you leave this far off the ground, son. Nah, I'm playing. Juju, my dog, I'm happy. I've actually seen him personally in the city, throughout the city a lot. So obviously he's a good dude. Obviously the community connected with him. He has an amazing personality. I don't think there's a person that could say a bad thing about him. No, as a football player, obviously I think he brings veteran leadership to the group, like D-Mac said. A guy who's been in big moments, whether it be in Pittsburgh here. He's been in the playoffs. He's been to the ringer with us. He knows what it's like to play in high-leverage situations where he's got to have it. He's been in those situations. And obviously this room and he's with, and he said the weapons are better than the room was 2 years ago, overall as an offense in general. So I think his job got a lot easier when you're playing with Hollywood and Zay and Rasheed and Trav, because if he does come in, he's going to come in on situations where it's probably third down, short yardage, and we need a got-to-have-it type play, which is the kind of receiver he is now. He's a move to change and not really an explosive receiver, as if he ever really was beside his younger years. But when he was here a couple years ago, he got 900 yards for us. Should have been 1,000 if it was a couple of injuries. And that guy, the class, like D-Man said, that's the best guy you could ask for, because he plays the biggest thing always bring our offense. And so I love him overall.
Was he breaking up for you or just me?
Yeah, he was kind of breaking up at the end.
Oh, y'all back. Okay. But no, I love the move overall. It helps us out. It's a cheap move. It doesn't cost us any money. So if anything happens, God forbid, like with Rasheed, or if Hollywood's out for an extended period of time, or they try to be careful, you have a guy like Juju who you don't have to teach anything. You could just go in there, give him a refresher on the playbook, like he said today in his presser. But overall, he knows what to do. He knows how to run routes. He's a professional. So you bring a guy in like that, that's invaluable for an offense like this. So I love the move. Even if he is wide receiver 5 or 6, or wherever he is, whenever he's on the field, he knows what to do. And Pat trusts him overall more than anything. So it's a great move. You can't really say nothing bad about it, honestly.
Yeah.
DG, what about you?
Yeah, I think the move speaks volumes about how they really felt about this room going in. I think they felt confident in in the top three guys that they have in Rice, Worthy, and Brown. But I think the rest of that group may have left with some little bit of question, going into this season. Love Justyn Watson. Love what he brings to the team. Like I said, another guy that's willing to do the dirty work, lunch pail kind of guy. But I still feel like this room needed a vocal leader, needed a guy in there that had some success at certain points in his career to kind of help mold this younger crew. Those guys, like I said, the top three have all been in the league probably less than 5 years at this point. So to have Juju, have Juju in there to kind of be that vocal leader, be a mentor that a guy like Xavier Worthy can lean on at points in the season when things get rough or tough or anything like that. But I also think it means that the frustrations of Patrick Mahomes going into this season were definitely felt. I think it speaks volumes that he probably went to Veach and Andy Reid and basically told them that don't make me go through what I went through last year. Give me reliable guys, give me reliable targets. When Juju is here, CJ had a saying that Juju catches everything.
Coming back.
It's gonna be nice to have a guy out there that you can trust, especially on those tough 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 5s, when you really need a money down. I think that's the role he kind of steps into. Maybe we bring him along slowly at first, and beginning. But excited to have him back, man. Really didn't want to see him go, but at the same time, you understand it's a business and guys got to get paid and take care of their families. So glad to see him back. I know he's excited. Definitely great to have him back with the familiarity with the playbook and stuff of that nature. So yeah, glad to have Juju back in the city, man. It's great.
Absolutely, and I think the vibes within the locker room is certainly something worth mentioning. He was well liked when he was here. He and Patrick Mahomes, definitely, celebrated with him. You saw the Sky Moore TikToks and things of that nature. I think he's appreciated by those guys in the locker room, and I think they're going to be happy to have him back because he is that type of guy. He is that type of leader, and it's cool. It's cool to have Juju back, and I think that again, injuries limited, but he still understands where to be, how to get there, and when to be there, and that's the most important thing from a safety perspective as far as the room is concerned, because he's a backup and he's a guy that hopefully won't be thrust into a bigger role, but he's at least not going to mess it up if he is. So that's the most important piece of it. And so along those lines, of course, we have to talk about kind of the other side of that as well. And so I think we can get to kind of the individual players that are kind of the headliners in a second. The one thing I'll ask you guys is, do you feel like there's somewhere in this roster that you did not love what Brett Veach did? For me, I would have preferred to have another running back on this roster, whether it is Samaje Perine or a guy like Boston Scott who signed to the Steelers practice squad. I wanted to see another running back that I still think can still be added to this room. Outside of that, I don't have too many issues. Do you guys see any issues with what ultimately Veach did today?
Nah, man. I think he honestly, I think he killed it again. I liked that they were decisive this year about really keeping that depth at the edge position, and not so much depth at the defensive tackle spot. I know that's been one of their point of emphasis going into it, but I'm not surprised by a lot of stuff that they did this year, this time around. Definitely glad they walked away from Kadarius Toney at this point. Glad that relationship is kind of over. Just comes to a point sometimes where you got to part ways, and I'm glad they were
What
just able to go ahead and
what
make a decision.
what would give you the impression that that relationship is over? It's not like he tweeted out a GIF about the Joker or anything. Like, what he absolutely would never do that. He wouldn't
Oh
like me.
man, yeah, man. Nah, man. Look, I definitely appreciate everything Kadarius Toney did for us. The punt return in the Super Bowl, the touchdown in the Super Bowl. Uh, but then to flip it over to the next season, and now it's getting to a point where essentially you're doing things to cost us games. Um, and I know it's not like you do it intentionally or anything at that point, but you know,
It is what it
um,
is.
it is, yeah. It is what it is, man. That the relationship was starting to get soured, and you don't want to. I don't want to get to that point where it starts to get toxic or whatever. And you know, just not a lot of at this point that I think that he can provide for us as far as being in that receiving room or whatever. I think that the guys that made the roster are all better receivers than him at this point in his career. So, uh, yeah, grateful for what he did, man. But like it's business, dog. Wish you nothing but the best wherever you land. So.
Absolutely. CJ, what about you? Anything that you want to criticize Veach for on this roster?
Nope. Well, overall, the roster was pretty much set going into camp. Only thing was the big storylines was RB2-3. If we want to now, it's RB4. Who were the wide receivers? And he pretty much answered those questions because Carson Steele, like I said, took his job, and we bring in Juju back and re-signing guys like Mecole. You know what that room looks like, and obviously, we would like to see another veteran corner possibly be added down the line, maybe around trade deadline. But everything for this roster has pretty much been added. That will be added will be depth. But as far as the starters, we pretty much knew who the starters were. So obviously, all the guys we wanted to see get healthy with Toney and Jay Reed and Jalen and Josh, and trying to get everybody back on the field to get ready for week 1 or week 2 if need be. We're pretty much at that point now. We're a week out, so or 9 days away from game 1 and trying to make history again. So Veach is obviously always on the lookout when he makes moves at 10 p.m. at night or 12 and 2 in the afternoon. You never know with him. So, but there's always going to be guys out there that you can get obviously depth for, and you're going to need depth because it's a long season, especially when you're trying to go deep in January into February. So yeah, same thing like we've all said. Another running back will be great. Plenty of guys out there for options. Samaje Perine, Boston Scott. Obviously, plenty of other names out there. Blake Watson's also another guy that I liked. Cody Schrader, hometown favorite from Mizzou fans, is also a guy that didn't make the roster as well in San Fran. So plenty of options for another running back if you want to add one to the roster. So, and for DBs, there's always veteran guys that you can find. Obviously, there was another guy that was cut in Carolina, CJ Henderson out of Florida, was a former first rounder. So that fits Beach's mold for trying to find a former guy that was highly touted but didn't really work out to come in here and be a back end guy, maybe depth and can turn into a potential rotational guy. So always good DB depth and good running back depth on the market, which is the two positions we love. And I think that's exactly what we'll probably do. But overall, Beach did his job, man. Kept everybody healthy, got good depth where we needed in the draft. Wiley looked good in camp. Carson Steele came in, kind of like Pacheco, came in and took a grown man job and shocked all of us. And when you have moves like that, it's hard to really be mad at Beach when you keep finding value after value. There's really not too much you can critique about, except when you're starting to nitpick at that point. So,
No, not mad at that at all. So the only nitpick for me really is the running back position. I'm really not mad at anything else that they decided to do. It's a little light on linebacker, but I can't say that Curtis Jacobs did maybe enough to secure a for sure roster spot. So I'm not, terribly upset about how that happened, and I hope that he's able to come back on the roster as well. And then, there's guys like Siaki Ika if you want to try and go out there and get some more interior defensive line help as well. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But as far as the major cuts are concerned, you guys obviously talked about Kadarius Toney. A lot of consternation about him being on the roster, his talent, him being hurt. It felt like after the second preseason game, it was a long shot for him to make it. And that's ultimately what happened. So that's why he got waived. He gave us what he could in the time that he was here. And honestly, it was as expected. He was never going to be a real wide receiver. But he little bit of gadget plays, yeah, a really famous punt return, and that's kind of the Kadarius Toney story. And we'll see what he's able to do whenever his next move ends up coming. Justyn Ross, again, when you're not lining up right in the third preseason game of your third year being in the playbook, second year playing, not going to be a great time for you to make the roster. And both of those guys ultimately opened the door for a guy like Juju to be re-signed. and stay on this roster. Sky Moore to stay on this roster as well because you line up in the right spots. So from that perspective, it makes total sense. Other guys, I don't think there's anything else that's a major cut that really deserves it. Obviously, Kamal Haddon never really caught on enough as a seventh round type of guy to really find his way on the roster in a crowded DB room. Christian Wallace, as we kind of mentioned earlier, played very well throughout the preseason, earned his spot on the roster. Nick Jones, I don't think he had the best of preseason, but he was here all last year. We've seen what he's been able to do, and that's going to give you a leg up from that perspective as well. Nothing surprising from the injury standpoint. We knew Minihue was going to start there. We knew B.J. Thompson was going to start on the NFI because of the unfortunate heart situation he had, and we certainly hope that he's back soon. Truman Jones was not put on IR or PUP. He was simply just waived, so we'll see what ends up happening from that perspective. But, yeah, I don't think there's anything too crazy to talk about as far as the cuts. I will say Lucas Niang, disappointing, obviously, as a day two guy. He sat out the COVID year, unfortunately got injured that first year back, kind of just derailed his career. We've kind of been chasing tackles since then, and that's why Jawan Taylor has gotten signed. Well, that's why Orlando Brown Jr. got traded for, and that's why Jawan Taylor's got signed. That's why Kingsley Suamataia has got drafted, and why Donovan Smith got signed last year as well, because he just didn't do enough to develop. And ultimately, that his time ran out because of what Ethan Driscoll can provide from an upside perspective. So, other than that, I don't think there's anything too crazy as far as the cuts are concerned that we need to highlight. But I again do want to have to give a shout out to the guys that really did earn their way onto the roster. Certainly, Christian, Roland Wallace, C.J. Hansen, they both fit that bill for sure. So, as we kind of talk about the All Practice Squad kind of candidates, I'll kind of ask you guys in the same sense of offensive, defensive guy that you really want to see on the practice squad as far as candidates. It doesn't have to be limited to those guys on the screen, but guys that you really do want to see back on here. And we'll take out Deion Bush since we kind of know that he's going to be back too.
Yeah. I think offensive guy I probably would like for them to retain on the practice squad would probably be like a Nico Remigio. Keeping him stashed down there just to come in case of emergency of special teams or punt return, something like that. Also, we know he can kind of provide in that receiving room as well too. But that'd be one of the guys. Him or Montreal Washington would be a guy that I would probably keep around on the practice squad as well too. You can never have enough punt returners around, guys who can do that. It's not an easy job in this league, so. Keeping those guys around. Then defensively, probably for me, I guess it would be between Fabian Lovett and maybe Kelvin Joseph, but I probably would favor Fabian Lovett over them. Keeping that big body, guy who can come in and play that defensive tackle role. Keeping him on the practice squad, and allowing him to kind of learn and develop under some great guys and Chris Jones and Turk Wharton, and picking those guys' brains at points and times during the season just to kind of sit back and learn from them and really develop in the game. So those would be the two guys that I would probably pick.
CJ, what about you?
Yeah, Nico for sure be the one out of all the receivers that we let go. He's the one we obviously had, probably for me at least, I had the most trust in. Obviously, he had a bad fumble in the Jaguar game, which luckily he recovered back. But out of all the explosiveness that he's shown for you to make plays, make catches outside of his catch radius, obviously he has the punt return ability. He would be the one I definitely would want to bring back and stash on practice squad. If anybody, he fits the mold in the body type of what we want in returner and in our slot receivers. I like what he brings. So I would definitely want to stash him. And on defense, I would probably go, Deion Bush is the obvious one. So I'm going to go – I'll probably go Kamal Hayden just because we've shown ability to develop DBs and find guys in those later rounds and maybe turn them into rotational guys, if not starters. So anytime you can find value in a great DB, which is going to help you save money, because we know Trent McDuffie's going to be the one to break the bank when his number is called in a couple of years for his contract extension. So if you can find another starter and one of those guys that you drafted on day 2, day 3, that's nothing but value, especially in shows the track record continues through Coach Merritt and Coach Spags, what they've done with their corners and developing guys. So I would like to see him stashed on the practice squad, maybe see if he develops and gets better. and gets those little things in this game better as far as reacting and staying in phase a little stronger. But yeah, he would be the guy for my defense. Would be Kamal Hayden for sure.
Yeah, man, completely understandable. I mean, as far as the offense is concerned, you guys, I've down the table for Nico Remigio, so I certainly want him back. But to pick a different guy, I think he deserves a shout out. Cornell Powell's, made some plays throughout the preseason. I'm perfectly fine with him continue to be on the practice squad. I'm gonna say I don't have any issues with it.
First team all practice squad, baby.
First team all practice squad, baby.
He know he coming back. He already know he coming back.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any issues with him lining up. So you know what? If he's on practice squad and he's got to get elevated, I will not, go crazy over it. So I hope that they certainly keep him from that perspective as well. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Chu Godric, you would like to keep out there on as far as offensive line is concerned to continue to develop. But I don't, he's the international player program spot, so don't have to do anything special from that perspective. But definitely deserves to be mentioned, Cornell Powell as well, because he did have a nice preseason. Defensive side of the ball, look, I'd love to shout out Curtis Jacobs. I think that there's a good linebacker in there to be developed, and I want to give him the time to do so. So I certainly hope he's on practice squad. And the other guy is Fabian Lovett Sr. I mean, I don't think he came into the games and made a huge impact, but I still think the basis of his talent is worth developing again. So I'd certainly like to see him stick around as far as the Chiefs and continue to work with Joe Cullen, continue to work with Spags, and see what he can give us down the line. Because I think there is certainly a useful interior defensive player there to be had. So that's kind of the rundown as far as the practice squad 53-man roster is concerned. It was a long wait to say the least as far as to get to this point, obviously. And the beauty of it is most of these guys are not going to matter too much. To answer your question, Mayor, Christian Roland Wallace, the DB, I think you would say was probably a surprise. Nick Jones to a certain extent. And then, Ethan Driscoll, a little bit of surprise that he ended up making. Yeah. That he ended up making it. Any surprise cuts for you guys? I think we discussed earlier, but anybody that you were surprised got cut?
We weren't okay. So let me go. We weren't.
We called this yesterday.
We called this yesterday. We knew Kadarius Toney and Justyn Ross will probably not be on this team.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people on Twitter that had other ideas. I've seen a lot of tweets of people saying why are they keeping Sky Moore over at Justyn Ross or Kadarius Toney. The Sky Moore hate is real.
We got to stop
Twitter.
that, bro.
Or whatever, but
somebody's got to get hated this year. Somebody got to get hated.
It is what it is. I understand it. The kid has come in and kind of made some mistakes in certain things of that nature and punt returns and
they don't remember what you do well, only what you do wrong.
Yeah,
that's how it always is.
But at the end of the day, I think that Sky Moore, in my opinion, is a better receiver than both of those guys at this point in his career, and that's the reason why he made this roster. If you're gonna have a guy that's a wide receiver 5 or 6 on this roster, I would like to feel confident that he can run routes and he knows where to line up. And that's two things that both of these guys that got cut, Justyn Ross and Kadarius Toney, just weren't fulfilling at this point. So it is what it is. Like I said, it's a business, and sometimes it comes down to numbers, and gotta cut weight sometimes. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rely upon him. You can't rely upon him to stay healthy. You can't rely upon him to throw the ball to him because he's going to drop it. It's a reality situation. That's why he got cut. And I said it. Chiefs Kingdom loves to hate guys. They also love to act like you can't reset expectations for draft picks after they get taken. And, that's unfortunate. But Sky Moore knows where to line up. That we saw some of his return value throughout the preseason as well, specifically on kick returns. And none of those guys behind him did enough. And it's the same thing we talked about last night, I should say. I don't think Justyn Ross did enough. I don't think Nico Remigio did enough. I don't think Kadarius Toney did enough to force their way on this roster ahead of Sky Moore. And like we said, when Juju got signed back, that was all she wrote for those guys. And ultimately, that's why they didn't make the roster. But that wasn't a surprise to us. We expect that to happen. So Nothing too crazy from that perspective either. So yeah, that's your team to start out. This is again very fluid. Before week one, things can change. We still have, I think, around $11 million in cap space, and about 5 million of that is going to end up going to the practice squad. But there's still operating room for Brett Veach if he wants to bring other people in. We'll see if he ends up doing so as we get closer and closer to week one. But ultimately speaking, that's it for the roster for the preseason for the 53 man. Now it just comes down to actually playing the games, and like we said, football is right around the corner, man. We are going to have a full breakdown next week as far as the matchups, kind of in depth as far as us versus the Ravens. Of course, a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year. The one thing that I'll ask you guys really quickly, because I don't want to get in too deep of it. What is one player that you're really excited to see play in a real game on the Chiefs specifically? I assume you weren't going to take Ravens, but I figured I'd specify that.
You know who it is, man. Xavier Worthy. Ready to see X get out there on the field in his rookie season, show that speed, that explosion that this offense has been desperately needing for the last couple of years. So I think it's going to open up a lot of things for this offense this year. Just pray that always for health and you can stay healthy, stay out there on the field. But yeah, man, definitely excited to see Xavier Worthy do his thing this year.
CJ, what about you?
Jared Wiley, 13 sets are
I
back.
was gonna say that too. Yeah.
We missed that in 2022.
Yep.
We were the best in football, and Jody Fortson was here, and Noah, and Trav, and now we got baby Trav and Jared Wiley. So the kid can run. He's big. Had the most explosive plays in NCAA football last year. You add that to Noah Gray and Travis Kelce, and the speed from Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown whenever we get him back as well. And then you just add Juju and Rasheed for insurance for everything short to intermediate. This offense can essentially do whatever they want to do on offense. And if you can find value in Carson Steele, those 13 sets are going to be even more valuable to this offense, especially when we get inside the green zone, inside the red zone. So I'm super excited for when we go 12 and 13 personnel, as I always am, but even more so this year just because Wiley can be so scary in this offense, bro. Like, you can't teach 6'6", and you add Travis Kelce to that. It's just very hard to defend. Very hard.
Yep. Understandably so. I could go with the cheeky answer and just say Mahomes, but I'm not going to. I am generally curious to see Mr. Kingsley Suamataia play a full game. I think that you saw some very good things from him during preseason. Now it's time against the big boys, defensive schemes that are going to come after him. Let's see what he can do. And I'm not going to say that it's a massive piece of the team. But it is, one of the most important newcomers that we certainly have, and so he's going to have to go out there in a difficult position to left tackle and play a really high level for us. But I have a lot of confidence in what he can get done. So we will talk more in depth as far as the matchups are concerned for week one as we get closer and closer to the game coming up. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys tonight as far as the review is concerned. Please make sure to be on the lookout. Kingdom Cast will have a Thursday show this Thursday. We will be doing Tell the Truth next Tuesday, and we'll hit you guys as far as what shows we're doing around the actual game, obviously on Thursday. So it will not be a Kingdom Cast show on Thursday night. Make sure you guys do tap in air at AM PM with DG. He's going to be starting up over on their channel as well. And also do pay attention to the Kingdom Cast Twitter sphere because I will be putting up a poll because I want to, put together a little video before the season starts out, and I'm going to need you guys' help on picking the topic as well. So make sure you guys take a pick, man. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in for the first time, man. Appreciate you for coming by. Appreciate everybody that always tunes in, man. Chiefs Kingdom, football is right around the corner. I know you guys are happy to see it back. You got your roster ready to go for this three-peat, man. But yeah, for yours truly, D-Mac, you got DG and CJ. Till next time, man. Go Chiefs. Peace out.
Jeez.